Welcome back to another episode of the Mindsets podcast. Today I'm joined by Michael Burton, who's going to give a bit of an introduction to himself. Now, just before we get going, I just want to say thank you again, everyone, for listening. My name is Angus Cook. I am still your host. And going into this episode today, I'm very excited to hear about some of the crazy things that Michael's been up to. But also, I just wanted to say thank you to you guys. The podcast continues to grow massively, and every share, like, follow, all of that amazing stuff goes so far. So thank you again. But I'll hand over to Michael to get the juicy bit of this podcast going.
Okay. Hello, everybody. So I'm Michael Burton. I'm Irish, as you can probably tell. And I am kind of an ultra endurance athlete. But I suppose that's what I'm striving for at the moment, which is to kind of get to that stage of doing more ultra endurance events. And I suppose my biggest event to date is doing 32 70.3 Ironmans in 32 days. I did that in September of 2022.
Mad. So before we obviously get to that point, what I like to do is just throw everything back to the early years.
Mm-hmm.
You're from Ireland. Whereabouts?
So I am from a town just outside of kind of Dublin in a county called Wicklow. So I'm from the sticks. I grew up on a farm in a place called Enniskerry. So that's pretty much where I grew up, yeah.
Was it an animal farm, crop farm?
Animal farm. So it was quite a small mixed farm, to be fair. So I lived on that until I was about 8 years old, until my granddad passed away, and there wasn't anybody there to take it over. So then it just became just sheds and stables and a couple of horses and things like that. But yeah, grew up in a small kind of town, out on the outskirts of a small town, I suppose, in the countryside.
Pretty opposite to where we're at today.
Absolutely, 100%.
So in terms of growing up in that setting, was it one school in the village and you went to that school, or?
Genuinely, I was so far out from the village that I was in the rural school. So Enniskerry had its own like 2 primary schools, and I was in the one that was like up in the mountains. So I went to that school until I was 8 years old, and then I moved from that school to a whole new school in like the closest town, which was Bray. So I moved when I was 8 to that school, which is pretty good for me, to be fair. When I was in the original school, there was only about 5 people in my class.
5?
Yeah, something like that.
Damn.
Yeah, it was very, very small. Yeah, very, very small. Maximum 10. I can't fully remember exactly the number, but it was a small amount of people.
And did you do things like PE with 10 people? Like, I say PE, physical education.
Honestly, I can't remember. And one of the biggest reasons that I moved school was because of sport.
Okay.
So my mum moved me school because I was excelling at sport and I wanted to, and it was actually my Christmas present.
Oh, really? To change school?
To change school.
That is amazingly cute.
So my granddad passed away just before that, and I moved school in the January of that year.
What sports were you interested in then?
Athletics.
Oh, really?
Athletics was my first love, you could say, when it came to sports. I was an extremely good sprinter. Okay. As a kid. Yeah. Went to I think I came second in the community games, it was called back then, in like sprinting when I was 8 years old, and then reached multiple finals, was in a few different athletics clubs. And I remember when I was in 3rd class, maybe 4th class, I don't know what that is, the equivalent over here. But
how old are you?
I was about 10.
I think by 10, I think you're probably year 5, year 6 here.
So I was about 10. I was 9 or 10 years old, and our teacher was away for some reason. So when our teacher would be away, you got moved into different classes, and you always got moved into like the 6th class. So the boys that are about to go to secondary school, and they had their race day on, which was like you would race, and whoever won got to go to represent the school. And I beat everybody in the school as a 9-year-old.
Nice.
Yeah.
So then you went. I take it you took the opportunity to do that race.
They wouldn't allow me to.
Oh, too young.
No, so I had to race at my own age.
Oh,
So still represented the school.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I distinctly remember when I first moved to that school, Cronin's, I think it was like third or fourth day, it didn't even have a proper uniform yet. They did the same thing, you were racing for the thing, and there was like a kid there, and he was like the fastest kid. There was like no one beat him. I just remember absolutely stomping everybody, and everyone was like, who is this fella? Like, what's going on?
Nice.
Yeah.
So did you then just stay at athletics the whole time, or did you kind of delve?
Yeah, I was pretty much athletics up until I was about 11, and then my mum started me playing a bit of rugby. Yeah, when I was about that age, I was pretty good at rugby. Hated being tackled. It was I was like I would like run across the pitch. I was like that kid.
What sort of position were you playing in?
Winger, fullback.
Definitely hated contact.
Yeah, definitely hated contact. And then as I got older, I think 15, 16, I went from playing in the backs to playing in the forwards and loved contact.
How come was that just the classic, you grew faster than everyone else, you're bigger, you go in the forwards?
Yeah, I think so. I was also extremely athletic, so I could play back row. And I also think at that stage of my life, I needed the physical contact because I was just dealing with so much. I just loved milling people.
Okay. And dealing with so much in what sense?
Just aggression, I suppose. It filled me up at that stage of my life, I would say. Probably from when I got into secondary school, which is 13 back home, I think I was under the surface just full of anger up until I was about 23.
Do you reckon that's literally just as a result of like you're going through puberty, you start getting loads of testosterone in your system, or was there other stuff causing it?
Nah, it was other stuff causing it. So I suppose the background around that would be like a lot of loss. I don't know, like grief is a difficult subject, or not. Well, not. Or maybe I shouldn't call it subject, but difficult thing to go through. I don't think I dealt with it very well as a kid. I don't think I was taught like how to deal with it in a way. I think
it's very difficult to be, because it's an unexpected thing. You can't really be taught, and this is going to blow some people's heads actually. So when I was really young, I remember one Christmas I got given a rabbit as a pet, right? And I had always wanted a pet. I think most kids at some point in their life always want some sort of pet. I came to find out years down the line that my parents had deliberately got a pet for me and my sister when we were that age that didn't have the greatest life expectancy, to hopefully introduce us to the idea of grief in a less serious way than losing a family member before it happened. So then when we came to losing a family member, like we'd gone through something before, like we kind of understood the whole passing, which is mad. So like indirectly, my parents bought me a rabbit to make me feel upset about the rabbit dying. That might be a bit extreme. They obviously bought it to make me happy, and I was extremely happy about having this rabbit. But it's something that's
super interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting technique. And I do think to an extent it did actually help.
Yeah.
Because I now have lost family members, but grief in itself is a really, really unfamiliar thing, because you can't prepare someone for someone to have another person there one day and then just not.
Yeah. I think also the manner in which a lot of the passings happen. So I think for my granddad, he passed away of cancer, but it was like very quickly. So he was absolutely fine, and somebody broke into the neighbour's house and he went in to stop them, and one of the people headbutted him, and then within 4 months he headbutted him in the chest, and within 4 months the cancer had spread everywhere and he was gone. And then I think I was about 10 or 11, my biological dad was supposed to pick me up from school, never arrived, not seen him since. Found out like 2 months later that he had completely moved to a different country. And then not too long after that, both my grandparents and my stepfather were killed in a car crash where joyriders were coming down the motorway on the wrong side of the road, being chased by police, hit them face on, and that was that. And then that just started the snowball of the breakdown in the relationship between me and my stepdad. And just, yeah, I think all of those things in quick succession for someone quite young, because I suppose someone said it to me, which was that young children don't understand the difference between somebody leaving and somebody passing away. It feels nearly the same to them. And I think, obviously, my dad just left, and that's fine. But the other people like passed away, and it was just like, it felt as if everyone who I loved was just leaving.
That's got to be really difficult as a young kid. And I think it's actually interesting. There's similar situations there as to what Jason spoke about in, I think it was episode 16. He went through 3 very quick successive bouts of loss. Yeah. And again, was not in a position to deal with that. He was obviously a lot older than you were. And I can only imagine as a kid, again, still in a relatively remote area, the difficult thing about being a kid is most of the time you don't understand your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, even now, like if this happens at this sort of age, you may have a friend or know someone that has gone through something at least that you can talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And you therefore may feel more comfortable talking to someone, or at least because you've learned to communicate how you feel, you can do that better. But as a kid, there is no way, a bit like you've just said, people are assuming that, you know, when someone leaves, it's similar to sort of death. You have no toolbox for dealing with that.
And the other thing about all of this was, I think on the surface level, people were like, he's sweet, like he like plays sport, and the sport was like my outlet through that whole thing. I remember my mum, I can't remember exactly what age it was, but my mum someone said to my mum, I think it was a teacher actually, that, you know, he's been through a lot, I think he should probably go to therapy. And I was just so good at hiding it that about 3 sessions in, I'd convinced the lady that I was like completely fine, and I was like, I mowed her grass, and my mum arrived to pick me up from therapy, and I was mowing the grass for the therapist. Like, I was so good at hiding what was going on inside. I just like suppressed it all. I think part of the reason for that is like the whole idea of like monkey see, monkey do, because that's exactly what I saw my stepdad do around his loss of his parents, which was that we don't talk to anybody about it. We don't talk about it in the house. It's kept a secret. I stay in my own room. I don't like spend time with like the family setting. So I was just like, he was pretty much like, it's my problem, I deal with it. So I was like, it's my problem, I deal with it.
Wow. Okay. That's not a normal thing to do. And I can appreciate, again, you're a kid, you learn off monkey see what you do.
Yeah.
Monkey see, monkey do. So you end up doing what seems to be successful, but at the time, if you don't know what successful is and what isn't.
Yeah, exactly. You're a kid, you don't really. And then innately, that led to a lot of resentment, because I would be like, hold on a second, you've gone through something where with literally in an instant you lost both your parents, and obviously that is horrendous. And I don't know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to lose 2 grandparents like that, but I don't know what it's like to feel to lose 2 parents like that. And I had so much resentment towards him for a long period of time, because I was like, they were gone in an instant, and all you want to do is drink wine and sit in your room on your own. It's like there's like a whole family here, and you don't want to spend any time with us, which I suppose potentially is quite harsh to do to someone, but I had a lot of anger towards him for a long period of time.
So then when you finished school, did you move on to sort of college or uni?
Yeah, so I finished school at 18. By that stage, I dropped out of any sort of sport altogether, and drink and drugs was my outlet to deal with things, whereas previously it was sport. It was the rugby pitch, it was the collisions and everything like that. But then, yeah, so 18 came around, I went into college to do engineering, and by Christmas time I dropped out. Just before that Christmas, I tried to take my life on a couple of different occasions, and then on Christmas Day I was rushed to hospital with an internal bleed. I spent about 2 months in hospital that Christmas.
What was the internal bleed caused by?
They said it was like a stomach ulcer that popped, which would make sense because of the amount of painkillers, Nurofen, drink, drugs that I was consuming at that period of time.
How did you get kind of into the habit of, well, not the habit, but falling into the trap of alcoholism and drugs? I suppose everybody goes to uni, right? And it's like this party thing, and
I dropped out quite quickly. So I had a lot of money because I was working 2 jobs. My friends went out on a Monday, Wednesday, Thursday night. I went out with them. And I think the over-the-counter stuff was so that I could take it, get rid of the headache, get to work. And then all the other recreational stuff was just to escape, I think.
And it was sounds like it was sort of dealing with the mourning and the grief later on in like an extremely severe way because you never got to express.
Yeah, I needed to escape reality at that period of time. I really just didn't like who I was, what I stood for. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who I liked, what I liked. I didn't have values. I didn't value myself. So, yeah, you know, genuinely, I think my coin of phrase at that time was like, "I'm here for a good time, not a long time." And that was like the thing that I would say to everybody. You know, like I'd be on a 4 or 5 day bender, no sleep. Be like, oh yeah, I'll just keep going. I was the first person to probably be there at the pub, last person to leave, first person to go again the next day. There was like no stopping me. I was just relentless.
So then Christmas Day happened. Ultimately, you make it home from hospital.
I went on a bender for 5 days.
Straight away.
Straight away, yeah. I went looking for a job. Yeah, I was about 3 or 4. Yeah, I was a long period of time. I ended up back in hospital, but I went into a pub to apply for a job, and I saw people that I knew, and I started drinking. I didn't stop.
So was there another catalyst of moment that made you sort of wake up, or was this a gradual progression to kind of change?
Honestly, that kind of continued from like 19 to 23 years old. I got better, you know. I went back to college and I graduated college and I got a first in college and I finished top of my class, but still drinking, still taking drugs, still living for Friday, so that, you know, I'd put in the graph Monday to Thursday. I would like stay and study and work late, but then come Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I was like out drinking. Like that was like my release. And then I moved to London straight after uni. Like within 2 weeks I moved to London, and then that continued up until COVID happened, really.
So just carried on living the sort of lifestyle of drugs, alcohol, and then
genuinely I had no ambition to like wake up the next day. I was just like, I don't even want to wake up. So
did you ever at this point think about again trying to see a therapist, or was it again it's like my problem, I found my way of dealing with it?
I would talk to friends more so about things in more of a like surface level thing. Like let them know like I'm not doing too well, or I've got stuff going on. And I think it's quite hard to find a therapist that works for you. I think you can go through a lot of therapists very quickly, and it's expensive. Like you do 3 or 4 sessions and then you're like, I don't actually click with this person. You have to find another one. I think for some people, just talking to somebody is better than talking to nobody. And I think I probably did a little bit of that between like the 19 and 23, because obviously my friends knew that I tried to take my life. They knew I'd been in hospital. They knew whatever. So they were probably in the background, like, you know, getting around me, making sure that I wasn't going ridiculously too hard, trying to keep me in check. But like, I was my own person. That's like, there was no stopping me, if that makes sense.
So then COVID happens. And you can't go out to pubs anymore.
No.
Now, I'm aware that based on the laws of the UK, you wouldn't just be buying drugs or anything over the counter. You might have access to those at home.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I feel like I've read some articles and that sort of thing. There seemed to be a bit of a transition in the COVID year.
Yeah.
Am I right in saying that?
Yeah. COVID was obviously horrendous for some people. It was the best thing that happened to me by far, without a shadow of a doubt. So within that year, I probably weighed about 125 kilos. I was a big boy. I smoked 20 cigarettes a day. I drank 4 or 5 out of the nights of the week. You know, pretty much Monday to Wednesday or Monday to Thursday, I wasn't drinking, but then every other night I was, or I was doing some sort of recreational drug use. And COVID happened, no pubs were open, work from home. I think it was the 5K nominations. I don't know if you had that over here, but
Oh yeah, it was like some
You
sort of
nominate-
charity thing.
yeah,
You wake up one day and some bastard would have tagged you and nominated you to the 5K.
yeah. So I got nominated to do that by a good friend of mine. And I think I did the 5K just about. I think after about 2K I was walk running, and I lived in a house full of lads, and we just started running. Like maybe the first time we were maybe like 28, 29 minutes for a 5K, and then it was like, okay, well, the first person to get to 25 minutes. We were just going out and hammering it like every second day or nearly every whatever, and then got the 5K down to 25 minutes. We're like, oh, we'll do 10K, and it just snowballed and snowballed and snowballed. And then my little sister got very sick with an ED, and I was like, I need to go home because my mum was just sinking, and she couldn't cope, and she wasn't really getting the support that I think that she needed from other people in the house. And I was like, nah, I'm gonna go home. So I moved back. Didn't have a car, so I started cycling everywhere. I live beside the sea, so I started swimming, and it just snowballed into triathlon really. So yeah, COVID was pretty good.
So how quickly did you go from making a 5K in 25 minutes to being a triathlete?
Within 12 months I'd done my first Ironman. So I'd never done a triathlon before, apart from a transition year like piss take triathlon. And I went straight. I didn't do it any other. I didn't do a sprint, Olympic, half. I just went straight from the beginning of a COVID to a year later doing my first Ironman.
How did it go?
It was interesting. The swim went well. The bike went amazing, and the run was atrocious. So it was like 10 loops with a massive hill at the end of every loop. It was scorching hot, like just stupidly hot. And about 5 weeks before it, I like done my Achilles. So I was pretty scuppered when it came to running. I hadn't done any running for about 8 weeks before it. It was just like, I'm just going to get it done. My coach was like, you should not be doing this. And I was like, well, I'm doing it. It's like,
now, just for the people that have been, they've seen or heard about the fact that we've just mentioned an Ironman. They may have read it in the sort of description of the podcast.
yeah.
Now, before that person decides to go to Safari or Chrome or whatever to look up what the distances of an Ironman are, wondering if they could do it, what is the swim distance?
3.8K for a full Ironman.
Okay, and then the bike is
160K, which is 112 miles.
And then just when you've managed to complete both those ridiculous tasks, you have to run. Is it a full marathon?
Full marathon, yeah, 42K.
So how long did that take you on that time?
Oh man, I was sweet as a nut until it came to the run. I think I was like, I can't remember exactly the time. I'd say I was close to nearly 11 hours or something like that. I know it was probably long. It was probably longer than that. Maybe it was 12 and then it was 11 for the second one or something like that. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head.
So by the sounds of it, you did one and then somehow caught a bug from that and wanted to do another one.
Yeah. It just worked out that when I was training for the challenge, it made sense to do a full Ironman within that training block. So I did another one, and I wanted to do an Ironman event as well. So the first Ironman I did was a different company called Hardman. It's like an Irish company, and they do like local long distance triathlons. I had signed up for the Ironman event, but it got cancelled, and the only other event that year was the Hardman. So I was like, I'm just going to do this one.
Then, as you said, you went into a training block for the challenge.
Yeah.
Now, the challenge, I think you mentioned briefly in your introduction. So here we are then. We've got 32 70.3 Ironmans in 32 days across 32 different counties in Ireland.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's correct.
There's really just one question. I feel like you know what it is. It's why.
So it all started over a coffee after a swim, really, where somebody said, wouldn't it be class if you did, over the course of your life, you did an Ironman or a 70.3 in every county of Ireland? And my response to that was, that's ridiculous. Sure, how would anybody do that? Don't be daft. That's nuts, kind of thing. And I was searching for something. I didn't really like the job that I was doing. I was working in sales in Ireland. It wasn't tickling my fancy. And I was looking for something to do for myself to prove, like, I'd gotten so far, but I needed something for myself to just push the boundaries, do something hard, do something that people think is nuts and that people think you're never going to be successful at. So I said, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it for mental health. I'm going to do it for cancer research. I'm going to do it in memory of my granddad. So I did that, and I announced that in September with the idea that I would do it the following September. I got to January and I said, screw this. I don't want to work a 9 to 5. It's not serving me. So I left that job. I was actually coming back after Christmas, really, and I spent like 2-3 days in my bedroom, curtains pulled, just like couldn't get out of bed, was like really anxious, really depressed about going back to work. So I was like, I need to do something about this. So I literally contacted every single restaurant that I worked in previously when I was going through college, any coffee shop that I knew someone that worked there, see if I could get a job. So just sacked off that. I did deliveries in the evening so that I could train during the day, and I did coffee shops in the morning. And that's how I funded myself so that I could train. I contacted sports shows in Ireland, radio stations, got on, said what I was doing, and then there was no turning back. So I was locked in. And that was that.
So how did it pan out? As smoothly as planned, or?
No, I hadn't an idea in my head that it was going to be a lot different. Like that I was going to have like a camper van and like I'd have a team of people.
Is this a little bit like what's going on with the hardest geezer right now across Africa?
Yeah.
So he's got a little team. He's got his own camper van. There's the team going around following an RV or something like that.
Yeah.
Is that kind of...
I kind of had that in my head, like that was going to be the way in which I went about it. And, you know, I just had that vision. It's not how it panned out. It panned out that it was me, my girlfriend Emily, and my Ford Fiesta Ellie, and the bike was on the back, and we just took off on a Thursday evening, got up to I'm trying to think, Derry for the first one, and she drove the car and I did the Ironmans, and that was that.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool. And so afterwards, you know, you've completed that. I imagine you rested for a little while.
No. No, I went for a 7-day, 10-day holiday to Portugal, and then I did the Dublin Marathon about 4 weeks later.
So at this point, you've obviously definitely secured yourself as an endurance athlete.
Yeah, I'm just a bang average lad that did 32 Ironmans in 32 days, though.
I mean, those two things don't go together in the same sentence. And like, I get you, because you sound like you're another person that doesn't give yourself enough credit for how mad that is from a person that has not done that. Like that seems mad. Yeah. And I'm aware you're on the other side of it, and you may not appreciate what you went through now because you're not still currently going through it, but you might be like, yeah, I'm a bang average guy. I just did 32 Ironmans in 32 days, which is...
But like I am, like I'm not special at all. Like there isn't, like, okay, there might be a piece of me that I like pain. I love the idea of pain. I do. I like hard bike sessions. I like climbing up hills. I like hill sprints. I like doing the high rocks training. I like that because I can push myself to my absolute limit. I enjoy that. Everybody can do that though.
I can level with you on that. I think one of the things that I find quite addictive about exercise, training, that sort of thing, is that you're your own boss, and I would always say, like, I would push myself harder than if I had like a trainer that was trying to set a plan for me of how hard I could go. I'd almost find that as a competition. If I had something on a piece of paper where this trainer was like, oh, we need to do this many times, because I think that's really hard, I'd be like, cool, I'm going to do it, and then I might do one more. Like, I'm going to push myself to that because that's ultimately what I think. And I do find it addictive to be able to push myself that far. And to a similar point, like, the pain sometimes is the reward almost. When I come away from it, I don't feel like I'm a little bitch because I've done that to myself. And sometimes when I go to work, like go to the gym before work, I put myself through it. And then when I get into work all day, I might have a terrible day. I might get, like, bad things go on, but I still know I'm not a little bitch.
Yeah.
Because I've done that. And that's kind of my approach.
Well, that's my approach to life, is just do hard shit.
Yeah. Continue to do hard shit.
Just continue to do
You
hard
get
shit.
callous.
That's why I get up in the morning at 5 a.m. and get into a cold ice bath. It's why I do my gym sessions before I even go to work. It's why when I'm feeling motivated, I make sure that I use the most of that motivation to do something, because you're not motivated every day. But the days that you are motivated, you better use it.
Now, this year was supposed to be another challenge, but there's complications that can happen. And I feel like a lot of people that might be listening to this might be getting towards doing their first London Marathon.
Yeah.
And they may be going through a similar thing. So do you want to explain what the challenge was intended to be, and then kind of what's going the way?
Yeah. So last year I made a decision that I was going to do another challenge, and my idea was to run 5,500 kilometers over 55 days. Now, I understand that is batshit crazy. Like, I'm fully aware, and the 55-day thing might not be possible. Like, your man Ned Brockman tried to run the length of or the width of Australia, which is 5,500 kilometers, I think, in 4,500 kilometers in 45 days. Can't remember exactly the things, but he tried to do something similar, 100k a day. He wasn't successful. Does that make it a failure? Absolutely not. The 5,500 kilometers is not movable for me. The days is movable. I might have a day where I run 80k. I might have a day where I run 60. For me, it's getting to the 5,500 kilometers because that number has a meaning. So my plan was to do that and to try go about that this year. But unfortunately, last year I got a stress fracture, and it's pretty much meant that I maybe ran on off for about 3 or 4 months of last year. And that was that. That was it. One thing I'm happy about, during that period of time, I stopped drinking. So in the period of time that I found out that I wasn't able to run, I decided that during that period of time, the right thing for me to do was to stop drinking altogether, because I knew that if I didn't do that, there was a high chance of me slipping and going back down that route. So I decided I was just going to nip it in the bud and stop.
That's very wise. Very wise.
It's taken a long time for me to get there.
Can I ask what the 55? What's the?
So it's more the number 5,500. So from my understanding and conversations that I had with people that work in the mental health sector within Ireland, there is 5,500 people on waiting lists to see a form of therapist in Ireland, whether that's CBT or whether that's for someone being diagnosed with like Asperger's or different things like that, like different sort of treatments around therapy. So that's my number, and that's why I'm doing it.
I like it. Solid. I like the fact that you've got 32 and then 5,500. They've all got their meanings.
Yeah.
Cool. So we've spoken a bit now. You've got the all clear to run. So you're doing high rocks. You're doing hard things.
Yeah.
Are you gonna try and still go ahead with that challenge at some point, maybe next year, or?
Yeah, so I have a list of challenges in my head. And I'm just trying to figure out at the moment what is the best one to go for me. That challenge is most definitely happening. I think I most recently got into Why We Run, which is a 5-day ultramarathon in Wales. You have to apply to it. It's, I think, only maybe like 20 to 30 people get into it. So I'm looking forward to that this year. And my idea is, and my only goal for this year is to run a marathon with my mum and get to January of next year injury free. Because if I get there, then there is a chance that I will be able to do the challenge next year. If I get to January and I'm injured, there's not a hope. So this year is somewhat of a rebuild. Stop drinking, pretty much altogether. I'm focusing on gym 3 times a week with kind of high rock sessions thrown in there. I'm running maybe 3 times a week. And the idea is to just gradually build that up to September, take a few steps back after September, after that ultra, and then build towards something. I'm not sure if it's going to be Drive for 55. It might be another Ironman challenge. I have my eyes set on beating the world record for the most amount of consecutive full Ironmans, which stands at 105.
Is that date on the every day?
Every day.
Okay. Who said that? Do you know who said that?
Sean Conway. Really, really good. Like, unbelievable. I think he might be Welsh. Okay. Or he's either from Guernsey and lives in Wales, but it's something like that. Like, unbelievable. He only did that last year. It was incredible.
Mad.
Yeah, really, really cool. And then I think I've got like challenges within challenges, that makes sense. So I'm trying to do the world majors, pushing someone in a wheelchair. I grew up with my great uncle, I should call him Paddy, was in a wheelchair when I was growing up in the farm. So that is something that I've always wanted to do. He's too old to do it now. Like, he's like in his 80s. So I couldn't do it with him, but I want to do it with somebody. So that's like a list. So do all the world majors. I want to do an Ironman with somebody in a wheelchair. So all of these different things I have like ticked off. I want to guide someone who's blind and do a marathon. So I've like all these like mini challenges that I'm trying to like build into maybe like a bigger one as like the part of it. I'm just trying to figure out. I don't really know what I'm doing in life at the moment. So it's kind of like a little bit interesting, I suppose.
Well, I think, first of all, what you're trying to do and all of those challenges are incredibly inspirational and like really hit some poignant aspects of society. So I think you're going to have a huge impact doing those. One thing that terrifies me, and I want to almost make you promise me, is that obviously you want to go into doing, you don't want to be injured coming to from now basically until January next year. And there is only so much you can physically control. Like, I will touch wood now. Chair leg is wood. That, I mean, you could do everything you could. You could be completely injury free. You could bulletproof all the parts of your body and joints. Mm. And then some twat on a line bike comes out of nowhere and just fucks your ankle up. I mean, we've seen it with Milo, who does these.
Yeah.
You know, he's had an issue with his ankle and it can come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So control what you can control, but like, if that happens, don't let it kill you.
Yeah, if anything this year and getting injured has been the best thing that's happened to me in a really shitty way, if that makes sense. Like, I think I really struggled for a long period of time, especially when I gave up alcohol the first time. So probably from the age of 15 to I'm 28 now, but 27, I don't think there was a period in time where I didn't drink for more than a month. Even when I was trained, like I still had like a couple of drinks, or I wasn't binge drinking. It wasn't as bad as it was when I was, but there wasn't a period of time where I didn't drink for longer than a month. And I did 9 months, and I learned so much about myself that I'm anxious as hell. Like, I struggle to go into social situations without it, even if it's a social situation that I don't drink at. So like, going to High Rocks for the first period of time, I wasn't drinking, and I would like have panic attacks while at Hyrax. I'd have to like walk into the other room and like calm myself down. Whereas before, even though you don't drink at that event, I don't know what it was, but for that period of time, I was just like, I couldn't do it. So I just had to keep on going to things and pushing myself to go to them so that I could like understand what was going on and deal with it. And now that I've made the decision after stopping drinking, not drinking for 9 months, started drinking again, now I know that it's definitely the right decision for me, and I just need to keep doing those things, and eventually I'm going to get better at it the same way as I do when I'm doing exercise.
Well, it's really nice when I do see you out and about. Like you're very much more out of your shell as well. Because I think it's the same when I first went to Hyrox, or like to some of these social fitness things that happen in London. Like it's very difficult to see that number of people and be like, cool, this is a comfortable situation to be in.
Yeah.
And then kind of you start to do the workouts, everyone's really happy, or these runs and everyone's really happy, you kind of talk to each other, and then you start to get this appreciation that actually before that, no one really knew each other.
Yeah.
And so you're all kind of these just lost people.
Yeah.
Like kind of making friends.
For sure. Yeah.
Now, I want to move into bringing other people in. So we're going to go to some listener questions.
Yes.
Now, firstly, I must apologize. I usually give everyone at least 24 hours to pop some listener questions in. I had an issue where I tried to post on the tube, and Vodafone's Wi-Fi is terrible. I thought I was connected. I clearly wasn't. So I had to do it last minute. However, we have some keen people that have given me some questions. And first of all, we're going to start off with Jenny. So Jenny wanted to ask you, if you could achieve anything in the world athletically, what would it be?
That's a good question. I think if I could do the most amount of Ironmans, I think that would be insane.
And would be insane, I can confirm.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I have a number in my head that is insane.
Okay. I'm going to find out what that number is after, but you guys are going to have to find out by watching him do it. Cool. So the next question is anonymous. So this person wants to know, have you forgiven yourself for your past mistakes?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think I have, yeah. I don't think I have. I have. I don't know if this bothers other people, but people say no regrets. I hate that. I genuinely, can we curse on this?
Yeah, I've been doing it already.
Fucking hate that. Because if you don't have any regrets, you've not learned anything. Like, at all. Like, I would say that one of my biggest mistakes that I made was not giving my stepdad enough empathy, and that relationship disintegrating. And even now that I have made amends from my side, he's just older, and like not like it's gone too far for him, and it's just never going to be the same. And I've forgiven myself for that, because I can only apologize enough times, and then it's kind of on him then to deal with that. Like, that's not really my problem. It's like when you say sorry to someone and you genuinely mean it, if they react badly, that's their problem. That's not your problem. So I've reached out to so many people, like past partners, friends, different things like that, and I've like just said, I'm just so sorry. And for the most part, most people have come back and said, look, I see what you've been doing, I see where you're going, I see the development you made, and like, fair play. So I think, yeah, I've forgiven myself for a lot of it.
Cool. And then Andy has come in with the last question. How do you switch off the pain on day 32?
Day 32 was the best day.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the day where I probably had to switch off the pain was, I came off my bike at like 40, 50 kilometers an hour, hit the tarmac, took the whole skin off my leg, took all the skin off my hands, smashed my head, had to run a half marathon then straight after that. And then I woke up the next day and I was like, you know what, fuck this, I'm going for it. And I sent it, and I did the quickest day that I'd ever done. I did the swim in like 28 minutes, smashed the bike, and ran a 1:38 half marathon.
Damn.
Yeah.
Rapid, especially considering you'd have been like grazed up.
Yeah, and that was like about 10 days from the end. Yeah. I think, honestly, the worst day though was probably about day 4 or 5. My knee was completely like rigid. Had blisters going from toe to heel. Could barely run.
Knowing you're like an eighth of the way in.
Exactly. Yeah.
Peak.
Yeah.
Not ideal.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the next sort of section is reflective, but personally reflective. So just say I have this magical ability to lock you in a room with a past version of yourself. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same version, but you have to give that person 3 pieces of advice.
Yeah.
What would those pieces of advice be?
It's that simple. I think people overcomplicate a lot of things in every walk of life. I think people overcomplicate going out for a run. It's like, I need to have these gels and I need to have these running shoes on and these tights and this running vest. It's like packet of jelly babies and a crumpet, stick on an old pair of running shoes and you'll be fine. So I think that would be one of the things of advice that I give, that it is that simple. Do hard shit. So seek out displeasure in the form of going to events that you don't want to go to because you're nervous or you're anxious about it. Exercise, like never ever give up exercise. I think people really underestimate the amount that exercise brings to us as humans and why we need it so much. Because I think without it, you're fucked. Like you need some, and I'm not talking like you have to do marathons and like 5Ks, 3K if that's what you can do. Do some press ups in your house. Do something. Get out for a walk. Get out in nature. And then a third piece of advice: be yourself. Just the things that make you weird and wonderful are the things that give you the most power, and don't try to fit in.
Is that based on the fact that you didn't feel like you were being yourself previously?
Yeah, I've even like found that like even last year I was trying to be this different person that I wasn't when I was kind of like injured, and like I remember doing a podcast and I was like listened to it back and I was like, that's not me. Like I was very like, I think I was just going through a phase of like thinking I was David Goggins, and I'm just not David Goggins. Like I don't like getting up at 5 a.m. I don't have any, it is a struggle for me to do things when I don't want to do it. I don't have that mentality. I reckon I probably have that mentality about 30 minutes of the week. Like the 2 minutes that it takes me to like get into the ice bath every day, and the 2 minutes that it takes me to put on my running shoes or to sit down and script write. That's the only time that I have that mentality. People would think that you have it like all the time. You're all go.
Oh, it's such bullshit. And to be honest, like the key to faking it till you make it in like walks of life can be applied here. Like this is really funny. For anyone that knows Zach Perner, right? He's a Gymshark guy from Australia. He's pretty funny. But he's taken this approach sometimes with his brother that when things are really shit or like you don't want to do something, you're just like, yes, like overly excited about how shit it is.
Yeah.
And genuinely, I've had it where I've been going to the gym and so this happened the other day, right? I was going to the gym. I was really not in the mood to go to the gym. It's like 6:30 in the morning. Again, I don't want to go. The bed was extremely comfortable that morning. It was cold outside. I've made it to the train and I've been nice to myself this morning. I've decided to prepare a hot cup of tea in a flask.
I saw this.
And it's amazing. And I'm so excited. And I've put it in. I've shaken it. I've tested it. It's not going to leak. I've put it in a bag. I've walked to the tube station, which is about 2 to 3 minutes away from here. I sit down on the train. I'm desperate for this tea. And the cup is empty. And because the cup is empty, that means that the bag is now full of tea. And it could be all over my clothes for work, everything. Like, it was one of those situations where it was just like, fuck's sake. But I was looking at this cup, and I obviously didn't audibly do this in the tube, but in my head I was like, yes, amazing, great. And honestly, that just kind of gave me a little bit of extra energy.
Yeah.
Like, it was kind of funny. Like, you've got to laugh at it. And then I get to the gym and I'm actually not in that bad of a mood because like how much worse can it get? I've now got, my towel is soaked in tea and I'm going to have to use that to try and dry myself. Like that in itself is funny.
Yeah.
Like all of this stuff, which isn't ideal, is happening, but it's kind of still making me laugh. And that wouldn't have happened if I'd stayed in bed.
I agree. Have you ever listened to Jocko Willicks's thing, Good?
Yeah. Just every time something bad happens, good.
Yeah.
Because
I use that an awful lot during the challenge, like on a daily basis. That and go one more were like my two mantras. Just like the word good. It's like, oh, my knee doesn't work. Good. It's not good at all, but like
you're gonna learn something about yourself from it.
I'm gonna learn something about myself from it.
Cool. There's a question from the previous guest as well.
Okay.
So Jamie wants to know if you could go back to any moment of your life with your current knowledge, what age would it be, and why specifically that age?
Right. Okay. Can I have a specific point in time, like an actual moment?
Yeah. It can be a point. It can be a moment.
I would go back to the day that I stood outside in the pissing rain for 2 hours waiting for my dad to arrive. I would go back to that thing and just tell him, fuck him. You don't need to carry around the anger for him anymore. You're good. Just go after your own shit.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a very clearly poignant point in your life, and
yeah,
it's cool. So that leads me on to your question for the next guest. And I have been prone, so a couple of episodes ago, I actually forgot to ask the current guest for their question for the next guest. So I'm literally got it circled in this notebook.
Okay.
So I need to make sure. What is your question?
So I actually heard this over dinner last night, and I thought it was a great question because my answer to it would be my mum. My mum is 10 out of 10. And I said I'm running her first marathon with her. But outside of the family unit or the relationship that you're in, per se, who gives you the most inspiration in your life, who has inspired you the most? And that could be like an ex-partner that you're not with anymore, but you've learned so much about them. So who is it in your life that inspires you the most?
Okay, cool. Well, we'll pass that question on. So that kind of rounds things off a little bit. And this has been a bit of a crazy journey because there's obviously a lot that happened early on in life, and then that's knocked into you doing a lot now.
Yeah.
And again, it's difficult whenever you look at someone's past, which has been, I mean, for the most part, pretty negative, but has turned you into a very positive individual today.
Yeah.
And has figured things out. It's always quite inspirational. And for other people that may have gone through one or two of those things, being able to learn kind of that you have dug yourself out from arguably what some people might refer to as rock bottom.
Yeah.
And have got to where you are today is quite a driving force as well. So I want to say a massive thank you. Now, for anyone listening to this and you've been enticed by the challenges that Michael's going to be giving a go, where can they find you?
Instagram, TikTok are probably the two best places they can find me. I'm not really an influencer, nor do I want to be. It's not really my bag. I only do stuff because I enjoy doing it. Like my social media is for me, it's not really for other people. I kind of say that. But yeah, Michael Burton _fitness if you want coaching. And I can't even remember my TikTok. So
it'll be all tagged, don't worry about it. So guys, head on over, support Michael. I feel like everyone that can support, it might be useful at some point.
Yeah.
No matter how deep into a challenge that could be.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I'm extremely excited to see what you can achieve and the kind of challenges you knock up. So guys, thank you again for listening or watching. Again, all of the socials are at mindsets_podcast. So make sure you are following, subscribing, liking, and staying up to date with everything. There's more opportunities to get involved. There's actually some events coming up soon enough, which I'd love to see some of you guys at. So I'll make sure that I'm sharing all of that information on the page. We can get you guys to sort of get in contact. I don't have to post for listener questions. You can just tell me them straight face to face. That's all really exciting. So please do share. Let's help us grow this thing. Yeah, I look forward to seeing you all in the next episode.